Once upon a time, in Surulere, Lagos, Nigeria, there was a young man named Femi. His parents were teachers who had worked diligently for decades and owned 4 supermarkets in strategic locations. Though they were not wealthy, they lived a comfortable life, ensuring that Femi never lacked. In his second year at the University of Lagos, he met Tenny. She was a beautiful, smart, and charming girl, but life had not been kind to her. She came from a poor background, her parents barely scraping by. Despite this, she carried herself with the confidence of a queen, and Femi loved that about her. Femi adored Tenny. He wanted her to have the best, and when she needed money for food, clothes, or anything else, he gave. Many times he used his school fees to sustain her, thinking that love was sacrifice. It cost him dearly, as he had to extend his stay at the university by 2 extra years. But he never regretted it. Not yet. After his service year, reality hit hard. His parents had retired, and money was no longer flowing like before. He searched for jobs, but none came. He took up menial jobs, working as a construction laborer, a sales rep, and even a cleaner, just to survive. Tenny didn't leave him, but she also didn't make life easier for him. She was impatient, disloyal, and disrespectful. Tenny, once so grateful for Femi's sacrifices, now openly mocked him for his lack of success. She compared him to other men with fancy cars and bulging wallets. She embarrassed him in public, making cruel jokes at his expense, chipping away at his self-worth with every cutting remark. But why do some, I think I have my answer. Love, right? But what's the person you love isn't treating you well? My darling, move! Don't wait until they've destroyed every single piece of self-esteem you have. Male and female alike. Anyhow, and then there was the betrayal that cut deepest of all. Tenny was not loyal. Femi heard whispers and saw furtive glances. And eventually, the truth became undeniable. Hell, Tenny was seeing other men. I said it. She flaunted her infidelity, parading her new conquests in front of Femi as if to revel in his pain. She even had an OnlyFans page where, according to her, she shakes her melons or money makers for men to watch and pay up. Imagine the agony Femi endured. A man who had given everything, who had sacrificed so much for the woman he loved, was now being treated with such blatant disrespect, such utter contempt. It was enough to break any man. Moving on. Yet, Femi never retaliated. He never raised his voice, never laid a hand on her, never sought revenge. He simply absorbed the pain like a sponge soaking up water. He knew in his heart that he could never marry her. The disloyalty, the disrespect, the constant barrage of insults. It was too much to bear. He loved her, yes, but he also valued his own dignity, his own sanity. He couldn't understand it. Was she being controlled by some evil spirit? She's the evil spirit, my darling. She's the God forbid. Was there someone misleading her? Probably. Was this the case of the African toxic feminist movement that had taken over the minds of some young women? Probably as well. Femi, don't you see? She had asked him once during one of her now frequent tirades that usually begin with Facebook feminist posts. A woman is not a financial plan. I am not your responsibility. I can do whatever I want with my life, with my body, and you have no right to judge me. You should listen and not judge. Femi was stunned. The Tenny he knew, the Tenny he loved, would never speak such words. This new Tenny echoed sentiments he had heard debated heatedly online, particularly on Facebook, where self-proclaimed feminists often preached about female independence to the extreme, sometimes with little regard for traditional values of respect and loyalty within a relationship. He didn't disagree with the idea of a woman being independent and pursuing her dreams, but this felt different. Weaponized. Feminism, the origin of feminism was not to turn men into slaves or subhuman. It was for equality, for equity, for okay. This It's so frustrating because these acts of toxic femininity or feminism has caused the idea of feminism itself to be looked down upon. So much so it's a term that's been mocked so much recently. He was not against feminism. He knew women should have equal rights and be respected and not be abused in any way. But he knew that African feminism was toxic. Well, most of it anyway.
Penny,
he had replied calmly, trying to reason with her.
I never said you were my responsibility. I only wanted to help you when you needed it, and I never judged you. But this is not about independence. This is about respect, about loyalty, about the vows we made to each other.
She'd scoffed. Vows? Those are just words, Femi. Empty promises. I have looked at my hands and there is no ring. I am not your wife. Get that into your thick skull. This is the 21st century. Women don't need men anymore. Isn't it ironic though? Isn't it ironic that what she's saying, women don't need men? And girl has an OnlyFans page. Who's paying for your OnlyFans? Oh girl, shut up. Femi had fallen silent, his heart heavy with a deep sadness. He realized that he had lost Tenny long ago, not to another man, but to a distorted ideology that had poisoned her and hardened her heart. He knew he couldn't save her. He could only save himself. You are a man, Femi. A real man provides, she would snap whenever he failed to meet her demands. Auntie, you just said that you don't need a man. Why are you saying you should provide? Provide for who? I thought you were independent. What? Coming down. Femi didn't break up with her, but he knew in his heart that he could never marry her. But this Femi guy, Sha, you know you would never marry her. Just walk away. Why are you leaving her as a placeholder? Because that's what this looks like. You know she's toxic, but you don't want to let her go because you're waiting for another person. Then came Irene. Femi met Irene while doing a delivery job for one of the supermarkets. He was assigned to deliver some goods to Irene's father's house, and that was where they met. Irene took one look at Femi and saw something special in him. She was drawn to his gentle demeanor, his honesty, and his willingness to work hard even in the face of adversity. Irene's father, Mr. Johnson, was a shrewd businessman. He recognized Femi's potential immediately. He saw a man of integrity, a man who could be trusted. He started giving Femi small contracts, testing his reliability and his work ethic. And Femi never disappointed. He tackled every task with diligence and honesty, exceeding Mr. Johnson's expectations time and time again. Irene, watching Femi's progress, felt a growing admiration for him. She was impressed by his humility, his dedication, and his unwavering commitment to doing the right thing. She knew that Femi was a rare gem, a man of true character. Now you're talking. One day, Irene learned of an opening at one of her father's branches in Lagos. It was a supervisory position, a step up the ladder. She immediately thought of Femi. She knew he was the perfect candidate for the job. Despite knowing Femi personally, Irene followed due process. She made sure that other applicants were considered, but because she recommended him and the others were not as diligent and responsible as Femi, he got the job. It was a turning point in Femi's life. He was finally allowed to showcase his skills and his potential. He excelled in his new role, quickly proving himself to be a valuable asset to the company. But his success didn't come without its challenges. Some of the other staff members, accustomed to engaging in dubious practices, saw Femi as a threat. They tried to rope him into their corrupt schemes, hoping to silence him and maintain their illicit activities. They didn't know of Femi's relationship with Irene.
Femi, come on, don't be so uptight.
One of his colleagues, a man named Dele, said to him one day, winking slyly,
Everyone does it. A little something off the top. Nobody gets hurt.
Femi shook his head, his face hardening. I will not participate in any corrupt practices, he said firmly. I was given an opportunity and I will not betray the trust that was placed in me. Dele scoffed. Suit yourself, but don't come crying to me when you are stuck in the same position for the rest of your life. Femi ignored Dele's taunts. He knew that his integrity was worth more than any amount of money. He continued to work diligently, exposing the corrupt practices of his colleagues and reporting them to his superiors. His actions did not go unnoticed. Irene and her father were impressed by Femi's unwavering honesty and his commitment to ethical behavior. They saw in him a future leader, a man who could be trusted to run the company with integrity and fairness. The tension in the office was as clear as daylight. Femi found himself isolated and ostracized by his colleagues. But he didn't waver. He knew he was doing the right thing, and that gave him the strength to persevere. One evening, as Femi was leaving the office, he was cornered by Dilly and a couple of his cronies. They blocked his path, their faces menacing.
We warned you, Femi, Dilly sneered. You should have listened to us. Now you are going to pay the price.
Femi stood his ground. He knew he was outnumbered, but he refused to show fear. He looked Dilly straight in the eye and said,
I am not afraid of you. I know what you are doing is wrong, and I will not be intimidated.
Dilly lunged at Femi, grabbing him by the collar. The other men joined in, shoving and pushing him. Femi fought back, defending himself as best as he could. Just as the situation was about to escalate, a voice rang out, stopping them in their tracks. What's going on here? It was Irene. She had been working late and had heard the commotion. She stood there, her eyes blazing with anger. Dilly and his cronies immediately backed down, their bravado evaporating in the face of Irene's fury. They knew that Irene's father would not tolerate such behavior. Get out of here, Irene said, her voice cold and steely. And don't you ever bother Femi again. The men slunk away, muttering apologies. Irene turned to Femi, her expression softening. Are you okay? She asked, her voice filled with concern. Femi nodded, brushing himself off.
I'm fine,
he said.
Thank you, Irene.
Irene smiled. You did the right thing, Femi. I'm proud of you, she said. That night, Irene told her father everything that had happened. Mr. Johnson was furious. He ordered an immediate investigation into the corrupt practices at the branch. So Irene, her only brother, and Femi contracted private investigators who advised them to set a trap, a decoy, and if they fell for it, they would know they were criminals and bring them to justice. The dubious staff at work were not relenting. This time, their plan was to run the entire business aground, not just the branch where Femi works. Femi knew he couldn't stay quiet. He reported the issue to Irene. At first, she hesitated. Why are you hesitating? But after setting a trap, the corrupt staff fell for it, and the truth was revealed. Justice was served, and Femi was promoted to Assistant Managing Director at the head office. I'm so happy! Woo! But I could never understand. I could never understand employees trying to ruin a business, especially when they have good bosses. It's honestly confounding. Why? Why does it make sense to you to run a business aground, a business that has treated you well, a business that has fed you, clothed you, housed you, literally, through your salaries, yes, but all the same, it's a mystery. Anyhow, months later, Irene's only brother needed a kidney transplant. No one was willing to donate, except Femi. Because of him, the business blossomed and her brother survived. Gratitude turned to admiration. Admiration turned to love. Aww. Meanwhile, Tenny remained Tenny. Femi, knowing her nature, decided to put her to the test one last time. With the help of a prankster, he set up a scenario where she was offered money for a one-night stand. Wait for it. She failed. No surprise there. Not only did she cheat again, but she also took the money, while Femi watched the entire event unfold from monitor inside a control van. The pain was sharp, but it was also liberating. Called her for dinner and broke up with her without explaining why. Tenny, in true fashion, caused a scene. He left without looking back. And what of Tenny? Who cares? Well, her life took a different turn. The men she had chased after, the ones with fancy cars and bulging wallets, had eventually abandoned her, leaving her with nothing but regret. Normally now, the men she did not need. She watched Femi's success from afar, a bitter taste in her mouth. She realized that she had made a terrible mistake, that she had thrown away a good man for fleeting pleasures and empty promises. She couldn't afford to maintain the BBL she did on her butt and breasts. Oh God! So she was ashamed to be seen in tight clothes, because of how bent her shape had become. Oh my god, the picture. Oh my god. One day, she saw Femi driving by in a sleek new car, a beautiful woman by his side. It was Irene. Ooh! Tenny's heart sank. She knew that she had lost Femi forever. Years later, Tenny appeared on the popular Honest Bunch podcast. Of course, with sub stories for everybody. Lies, lies, lies. Looking for 5 minutes of fame. Of course. Anywho, men are wicked, she declared. I stayed with Femi Otedola for 6 good years. While he had nothing, we struggled together. And the moment he made money, he left me for another woman. The internet went wild. Toxic feminist pages on Facebook reposted clips from the interview with captions like, "Never suffer with the broke man, and men will always disappoint you. Men are scum. Men will stain your white." Femi stayed silent at first, but the attacks kept coming. His name was being dragged through the mud, and people were calling him a traitor. His pictures were used as memes, and Irene and her father were being dragged as people who think they can use their money to buy everything, including love. The audacity, the actual audacity. This is why you confirm news before you spread it. To all and sundry, confirm whatever a person says. Verify the story before you run it. Okay, calm down, it's just a story. That was when he made a call to the prankster who had helped him with Tenny's test. He offered him a good amount of money, but the prankster said he would do the honors for free. You know how bad it is when he offers it for free, my goodness. The prankster, now a popular influencer, released the tape of Tenny's betrayal. The internet exploded. The same people who had been quick to crucify Femi saw the truth. They saw how Tenny had not only cheated, but had disrespected him throughout the relationship. They realized that many women who stayed with broke men were often just as broke and only stayed because they had no better option. They understood that some women, like Tenny, saw struggling men as temporary stepping stones and treated them with disdain. If you're gonna call a man broke, make sure you are not poor yourself, okay? Why do we have double standards when it comes to finances? Check your purse before you call someone else broke. Drops mic. In the end, people learned a valuable lesson. Never judge a story from one side. And as a woman who is taken with a man going through rough patches, know that it is temporal, especially if the man is hardworking. However, you should leave him for another man rather than being around him, being a thorn in his flesh, draining him, depending on the little he makes, not adding any value aside from sex, and disrespecting him. He may pretend to be cool with you, but he will never forget. Yes, men don't forget how they were treated by their closest people at their lowest moments. A few weeks later, the internet moved on to its next scandal, but Femi lived happily ever after with Irene, the woman who had honored, supported, and truly loved him.